Linda did everything right. Frank did everything right. Tyler is doing everything right. And all three of them are about to find out that right was never the same thing for any of them. 3 people, 3 different decades, 3 completely different financial strategies, and underneath all of it, the exact same mistake. Not a mistake of laziness, not a mistake of ignorance, a mistake so well disguised it looks like wisdom. Each of them is following a rule that made perfect sense once, in a world that no longer exists. Boomers, Gen X, Millennials. Different headlines, different blame, different excuses. But strip away the noise, and you'll find one identical error, wearing 3 different costumes. Here's what it actually is. Here's what most people believe. Each generation simply got dealt a different hand. Boomers got pensions. Gen X got the crash. Millennials got debt. True, also almost completely beside the point. Because the hand you're dealt isn't what shapes your financial behavior for the next 40 years. The age you were when you learned the rules of money, that's what shapes it. Behavioral economists have a name for this. Cohort anchoring. The economic conditions of your formative years become your permanent definition of normal. Not consciously. Nobody decides this. It just sets like concrete, somewhere between age 18 and 30. And once it sets, it doesn't update. Not when interest rates change. Not when housing prices triple. Not when the entire financial system rewrites its own rules. You keep using the map you memorized in your 20s on a city that's been completely rebuilt. That's not stupidity. That's how human brains are built to work. Efficient, consistent, and, in this one specific way, dangerously outdated. Let's meet the 3 people living this out right now. Not as a lecture, as exactly what's happening in their bank accounts today. Linda is 64, Frank is 48, Tyler is 33. None of them think they have a problem. That's exactly what makes this worth watching. Linda started working in 1984. Her first rule, taught by her father, the house is the retirement plan. Pay it off. Never touch the equity. The house will take care of you. For 30 years, that rule worked. Her parents' generation retired on exactly that formula. Here's what Linda's rule doesn't account for. In 1984, a paid-off house came with a pension on top. Today, for most people, the house has to do that job alone. Linda has $410,000 in home equity. She has $31,000 in retirement accounts. She's not poor. She's house rich and cash poor, and she has no plan to convert one into the other. Frank started working in 2001. His rule, earned the hard way, never trust the market. He watched it happen twice, 2001, then 2008. Each time, people who trusted the market lost everything they'd built. So Frank's rule became permanent: keep it liquid, keep it safe. Never let the market hold your future hostage again. Reasonable rule, built from real pain. Here's the part Frank never recalculated. What's safe actually costs over 23 years. Frank has $240,000 sitting in savings accounts and CDS, earning roughly 2%. Inflation alone has quietly cost him more than the crashes he was avoiding. Frank didn't avoid risk. Frank just traded a visible risk for an invisible one. Tyler started working in 2014. His rule was never spoken out loud. It was absorbed, scrolling. Ownership is outdated. Flexibility is the new wealth. Why tie yourself to anything? Rent instead of buy. Subscribe instead of own. Stay liquid, stay mobile, stay optional. Here's what that rule skips over. Optionality has a price tag too. It's just invisible until later. Tyler has changed cities 3 times in 6 years. Each move felt free. Each move also reset his commute, his routine, and every single time, his savings rate back to 0. 3 different decades, 3 different rules, same underlying error. Each rule was correct once, and none of them noticed when once ended. This has a name: status quo bias, layered on top of cohort anchoring. We don't just prefer the familiar rule, we stop questioning it entirely once it's worked even a handful of times. Linda's rule worked for 30 years. Frank's rule worked for 2 crashes. Tyler's rule has worked for a decade. That's exactly long enough to feel like proof, and exactly too short to see the entire picture. None of them are wrong about the past. They're just unknowingly applying it to a present that doesn't match anymore. Let's put a number on this. Not to shame anyone, to make the invisible visible. If Linda converts even half of her home equity into income-producing investments over the next decade, conservatively, that's an additional $190,000 in retirement security she's currently leaving on the table. If Frank had kept that $240,000 in a balanced portfolio instead of cash since 2015, even accounting for both market dips along the way, he would have approximately $420,000 today instead of $240,000. That's not a hypothetical. That's the actual, calculable cost of staying safe. If Tyler had kept a consistent address and automated even $300 a month into an index fund for those same 6 years, instead of resetting his savings with every move, he would have roughly $24,000 built plus. Just as importantly, the habit itself. The habit is worth more than the number. Habits compound, resets don't. Here's the uncomfortable part. None of these 3 people are undisciplined. All 3 are following a rule with total consistency. The problem was never discipline. The problem is that discipline applied to an outdated rule just gets you to the wrong place more efficiently. So why doesn't anyone notice? Because the rule isn't usually challenged by life. It's usually only challenged by a financial advisor, a spreadsheet, or a video like this one. In daily life, Linda's house still feels safe. Frank's cash still feels responsible. Tyler's flexibility still feels smart. The feeling never sends a warning. Same root error. 3 different decades, 3 different disguises, real estate, cash, and flexibility, all standing in for the same word: safety. And that's the trap. Safety isn't one fixed strategy. Safety is whatever strategy protected you the first time you got scared. Which means the real question this video is asking isn't about Linda, Frank, or Tyler. It's about you. What rule are you currently following, without question, that was written by a version of the economy that no longer exists? Most people can answer that question in about 10 seconds once they actually ask it. The hard part isn't finding the rule. The hard part is admitting it was never permanent. Let's bring this together. This was never really a video about generations. It was about a single mechanism. The rule you trust most is usually the one you've stopped examining. First step, name your rule. Not your goal, your rule. The automatic belief that decides your money moves before you consciously think about them. For Linda, it was, the house will take care of me. For Frank, never trust the market. For Tyler, stay flexible, never commit. What's yours? It's usually one sentence, and it's usually older than you think. Second step, date it. When did this rule actually form? What was happening in your life and in the economy at that exact moment? If the rule formed more than 10 years ago, it was built for conditions that have already changed at least once. That alone doesn't make it wrong. It makes it worth rechecking. Third step, run one number. Just one. What has this rule cost you or earned you since the day it formed? Not to feel guilty. To finally see the actual size of the decision you've been making by default every single day without noticing. Linda is now exploring how to safely unlock some of that home equity. Frank moved a portion of his cash into a balanced portfolio, not all of it, just a portion he can actually live with. Tyler picked one city, not forever, just for now, long enough to let one's savings habit finally compound instead of reset. None of them became a different person. They just updated one rule that was quietly running their life on autopilot. That's the whole method, actually. Not more discipline, not more sacrifice, just fewer outdated rules running in the background. So, what rule are you still running? You probably just thought of it. That's where to start. If this gave you something to think about, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The next video is right there.